Now you might be asking yourself, why? Well, the short answer is because people like me have monkey brains and weird things are like shiny objects. We just gotta chase them, we gotta see more. And seeing more is just what we're doing here today. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Tarks Gauntlet. If you like what you see here, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe. Maybe hit that bell icon so you never miss an upload. This game is called About an Elf. I got word of it through my email recently and checked out the trailer, and I was enthralled with what I was seeing. Sadly, however, the trailer seems to be gaining no traction at all, so I'm here to do my due duty and hope this lands on the plates of at least a couple hungry people who like the same booty duty I do. Now, I've had plenty of opportunities to ask for various game codes over the past year from big and small companies alike, and for the most part, I ignored them, but based on the trailer, I just couldn't pass this one up. And thankfully, they didn't pass up on me either, so thank you, Meringue Interactive, for this opportunity and this wonderfully odd experience that also somewhat defies description. The reveal trailer and the website for the game describe About an Elf as a point-and-click-ish, RPG-ish, visual novel-ish game of elf-tastic proportions that is not to be missed. This description I take some issue with, as only one of these genre tags really gives the correct impression, that being the visual novel-ish part. So on that note, let's break down the portions of this review into sections that examine how each proposed genre tag works in relation to the experience.
Visual novelish!
About an Elf is likely around 80% visual novel, and at a simple yet suiting 5-hour runtime, it doesn't have a story that really takes itself too seriously. We play as the elf girl Dom, or damn, they never actually say it out loud. Anyway, we play as the elf girl Dom and play out the events of a story she tells to her friend Dido. This story is all about how she went in search of a great elftopia where elves could live safe and free of all threats. Thing is, Dom is a very, very unreliable narrator, seemingly making up the story as she goes. And the story she makes up, much to the game's benefit, isn't exactly a good one. The focus of the writing here is just to have fun, and Dom's bad storytelling is very much a part of that. Sharing in her adventure, we also have a talking cat named Roland, and Roland very much feels like a wink and a nod of sorts to the player. His blasé and sarcastic writing felt akin to how any player familiar with general tropes and cliches would react to the developments in the story. At any wild progression or far-fetched establishing of the rules of the universe, Roland would simply remark with an "oh sure" or a "makes sense" type of reply, and the story would just tick on to the next thing. About an Elf really gives you no room to even consider beginning to take things seriously. Rather, it stays firmly focused on giving you fun interactions in sarcastic, absurdist comedy. Interactions that by and large feel like 4-panel comics, each one with new characters who never really come up again, usually the bad guys you're about to face off against. There are some plot details and background elements in the story that come back up before the end to add some layer of cohesion beyond just the main purpose of the adventure, but again, it's played up for the absurdist appeal more than anything, and I really dig it for that. If the game were any longer, however, I may have desired more narrative substance, but it worked well within the limitations of its runtime.
RPG-ish!
The RPG aspects are a bit of a weird one. I guess in a way you could look at this as having a turn-based combat system, but you can also look at it as not having a combat system at all. And it certainly doesn't have any sort of leveling or stat mechanics, which I feel are an inherent necessity to even being RPG adjacent. Basically, on these maps here, you'll see these little enemy sprites just kind of spazzing about, as they do, and you engage them by simply pointing and clicking at them. After a brief exchange of dialogue, combat will begin, in which there is only one mechanic. A magical vision will appear to our elven heroine that will reveal the enemy's weakness by way of a videographic riddle. Once you understand the riddle, you select the answer, the enemy's elemental weakness, from your reserve of Magiballs. Once selected, Dom attacks and the enemy is destroyed. If you misunderstand the riddle and select the wrong Magiball, then the enemy attacks you back, you die, you lose one gummy bear, and you have to try again. I assume when you hit 0 gummy bears that's game over, but the game is very generous with them. So much so that I still had a surplus of about 60 by the time I rolled the credits. Now, most of these riddles aren't too hard, and you only have between 3 to 5 never-changing answers to choose from. And in practice, I think it's a neat sort of word association game. Obviously, if a vision of fire appears, then the answer is fire. But the answer to a hot dog appearing is also fire, because hot dog, you know? That being said, there comes a point late game where the rationale for word association seems very far gone, and I honestly had to brute force a couple answers, still not understanding them afterwards. I feel like this is largely due to the devs using what seems to be stock footage that they tried their damnedest to cram into 5 word groups, rather than trying to find or create footage that linked to the words from the get-go. While usually fun, I do think some riddles could have been sent back to the drawing board or cut out entirely for simply not making enough apparent sense. But who knows, maybe I'm dumber than I realize. Otherwise, there are some other light puzzle solving segments in the game, but they're relegated to simple multiple choice answers in dialogue segments.
Point and clickish.
When I envision point-and-click games, I typically think like old DOS games, environment and inventory-based logic puzzles, stuff like that. But About an Elf doesn't have anything really similar. While you will do some pointing and clicking to initiate combat and conversations or find the random hidden manatees, I don't think this really does enough to nestle in with the point-and-click genre. Rather, I find it better fits another genre that also works by pointing and clicking. The old hidden objects genre. You know, those old games where you're usually shown a scene and asked to find the things that are hidden within it. You don't do anything with the items you find, you just locate them. That's kind of what we have here for point and click-ish gameplay, which leads me to my one actual big complaint with About an Elf: the gameplay. I don't mind the minimalistic approach to mechanics in the various portions of the game, but there were definitely times I found myself wishing there was more to the game, different modes of gameplay, more variety. Throughout the game, you frequently enter new plexies and flummoxes, and some of these places, these mazes, look like they could offer some awesome exploration and puzzle-solving opportunities. But alas, all you do here is click on the enemies until they're gone. It feels like a massive missed opportunity that we can't explore these worlds more deeply and puzzle-solve more within them. But then this is a very, very small studio, and this is their first game. It's very clear where the studio's skill set lies and what they put their effort into. And on those things, I think they've done a spectacular job and still made this easily worth a playthrough for me. By those things, of course, I mean the game's presentation, both in terms of visual design philosophy and execution. I love the way the game looks, and it's what initially pulled me into wanting to play it. Environments ride this really weird line of abstract yet familiar, like everything belongs yet doesn't at the same time. And the detail to which these things are crafted, especially anything with a face like Mr. Broccoli here, it almost looks as if it's stop motion carved in clay. But it's more than likely just the effect of a really well sculpted asset made in ZBrush or something. Though animations are sparse, limited in frames, made with interesting shortcuts and tricks, and videos are often reversed to create looping backgrounds, it all just works to the game's aesthetic. As too does the shot composition. Though very flat in most areas, it gives off quite a distinct impression. Like Wes Anderson stumbled into a postmodern universe dripping in the meta-sarcastic comedy stylings of Vernon Chapman, writer and director of Xavier Renegade Angel and The Shivering Truth. These aspects alone made the game a joy for me and well worth the play, but before we close out, just a couple additional notes. The music in the game I find fits very well. It's goofy, but well composed, even if this one track is just Pachelbel's Canon in D, but with a different lead. There's also no voiceovers in the game. Rather, it takes the old school sort of RPG approach of bleeps and bloops to accompany the lines. And while the game ran generally well, I did have an issue that maybe escaped the QA. So just a heads up for the devs. At maximum text speed, there's occasional issues with answers being automatically selected while trying to progress. But that's about it. In closing, for those with a morbid curiosity for the strange and disfigured, you could do worse than About an Elf. But I don't think it's a game that will land very well for too many people. You should be able to tell at a glance if this is for you, and if it doesn't seem like it is, then feel free to move along. I don't believe this will win new players to this type of experience. The sheer nature of the game already guarantees a niche appeal, more so than most games I talk about on this channel, and it seems to cater towards people less interested in games and more interested interested in artistic visual experiments. Although in stark contrast to many of those other artistic visual experiment type games, About an Elf is rather devoid of the usual subtext that many creatives like to use their art as a vehicle for. It's just here to entertain, which strangely may make it an even tougher sell, as a lot of the people who look into games like this look for something deeper to chew on and walk away with a new perspective on things. About an Elf will not do that. It is not designed to. It is strictly the opposite. What it will do is make you laugh, smile, and marvel over the set pieces. If that's enough for you, then you can find a link to the game's store page in the description below. But that's all I'm going to say on it. If you liked the video or found it useful at all, you know the deal. Like, comment, subscribe, and share the video if you can. Discord and Twitter in the description below, and as always folks, thanks for watching.